on my channel. I just realized that today's stream was supposed to, sorry, something on my screen now. I just realized that today's stream was supposed to be members only, and next week was supposed to be the public one, because I always do the first one of the month public for everybody and all the other streams for the members only. So next week is actually going to be the one that should be open to all. So we're just switching it around, and I'm going to make next Sunday's What's New Weekly a private video for members only. So anyway, if you can see and hear me okay, I would really appreciate if you could give me a thumbs up in the chat. There, I just fixed that. Oh my goodness. I don't even know how to drink anymore. So, yeah, the topic today is keeping kids safe in the car. And there's so much to say on that topic, so this is not going to be exhaustive. I'm just going to, in no particular order, talk about a few things that I thought of that are important to me personally. Does not mean that there aren't a lot of other things that you personally might have to add to this list, or that I'm not forgetting something really important. So this is by no means a exhaustive list. Hi SJ, good to see you. Glad you were able to join. So if you have something that you would like to add as far as points on topic, that would be really, really great. I'm sure there are things that I'm not necessarily thinking of that should be mentioned. All right, Sons of Thunder, I'm glad you were able to pop in and say hi. Have a good rest of your day. And yeah, spotty internet, that's a hard one to deal with. We all have that some days. So anyway, because before we get into the topic, I usually give a little family update. There is not really much to report. We're still on summer break. We're about halfway through, which makes me think I need to make the lesson plans and the schedule for next school year. I've not yet done that. We typically start back in early August, just because that's when all the public schools here go back, and we try to kind of stay on the same calendar just because all the activities that are offered at the libraries and stuff, they're all on that academic calendar, and the kids' friends from the street and stuff like that, like, so we know when they're in school and when they're not, so we can kind of work with that. So I have not yet made that. I need to do that. So we're about halfway through summer break. The kids' swim classes, oh yeah, Sons of Thunder, I feel your pain. Hi Bianca. They're about halfway through the swim classes, so they've done 4 weeks. They have 4 more weeks of swim classes, and they're doing really well. Peter went from not being able to swim independently at all to he can really swim well now. And tomorrow when they start the next class, he's leveling up one more time. And Eva is not swimming independently yet, but she has made a lot of progress toward that, and she is doing really well. And all the other kids are no longer doing the swim classes where they're learning to swim. They're doing what's called swim stroke school, where they like develop, you know, their speed and technique and things like that, but they're confident swimmers. So we've been really happy with that. We've been doing that for a long time now, many years. My new home bakery is doing well, Oma's German Kitchen. I was featured in the newspaper this week. There's a little local newspaper for our town, which is like a small town within the greater Phoenix area. And it's a popular little paper, so I was really happy to be in there. I was actually, there was a little, well, I can show you, I have one right here. Thank you, Sons of Thunder. So it's this little newspaper, and on the front here, it has a little thing to check the business section. And then you go to the business section. There is an article, and it's 2 pages. And I thought the lady did a really good job. It was a very positive article, and I think it was written very nicely and very friendly. I need a pencil. So I'm really thankful for that. And a whole bunch of people that ordered this past week, I'll get back to that question, said that they found me through the paper. It's, even though it's like just a small community newspaper, because we kind of have like this small town feel in the big city, everybody reads that paper. It comes out once a week on Wednesdays. And I always read everything in because it's all local news. There's no national news in there. There's not even like city news or state news in there. It's pretty much all just local news for our little town here. So people actually like it and read it. And multiple customers today told me that's how they found me. Or not today, this week. So I've been really happy about that. In fact, there is a bakery about an hour north of us. And they are going to start ordering from me once per week, a fairly large order that they're getting delivered. Thank you, Bianca. And she contacted me like 2 or 3 weeks ago, not long after I first started. And she had mentioned that she wanted to, you know, get one large order per week. And I'm gonna start doing that this week. I don't deliver it, somebody else does, but you know, just making the goods. And she messaged me today and she said that one of her regular customers came into the bakery today and showed her this article, which is not published, you know, an hour north of us. It's just for our little town. But she showed her this article and said, there's this lady down in Awatuki and she makes German goods and you need to get her stuff in your bakery. And she said, the owner said, I actually have been talking to her and I'm going to start getting her stuff once a week, starting this Wednesday. So I thought that was pretty cool that, hi Cass, even an hour away, somebody had seen it. So am I going to scrapbook it? No. My husband was joking about framing it. I feel silly, but the lady that did the interview said that the newspaper offers like a mounting service. I guess that's where I've seen this before. It's like on a wooden plaque or backboard. Maybe that's what they're talking about. So if that is a service they offer, then I might do that, just as a little memento. I mean, it's just a little thing, you know, a silly thing, but anyway, I was pretty happy about that. So I typically bake, well, I bake 7 days a week, but for selling, I bake typically 3 days a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now this week I'm doing Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And then I'm also doing the big order on Wednesday very early in the morning. I have to start at like 4 a.m. for that because it needs to be ready to be sent off by like 9 a.m. because like I said, it's an hour away. So for her to get it by 10 a.m. is already pretty late in the day. So because of the 4th of July, I'm doing, you know, change my schedule up a little bit. But on the days that I'm not working, I do my other things, you know, my like I do the homeschooling, I do my other businesses. My swimsuit business has been pretty busy. And I started a new project which ties in with my bakery. I am writing a 3rd cookbook. And if you guessed if it is a German cookbook, you guessed correctly. So I got the ball rolling on that a few days ago. Like my other cookbooks, it was inspired by the fact that I'm writing the cookbook that I myself need and want. And while I have all my recipes that I've collected for years and put my little notes on it and adjustments and, you know, it's getting overwhelming keeping track of it all because my inventory for my bakery is expanding and it's getting difficult to keep track of all the recipes. And I really need to just put them all together in one spot. So I will be releasing a German cookbook and it will be German food in general. So it will be foods, entrees, hearty, savory stuff, as well as like baked goods and things like that. So I just got the ball starting on that. I am very optimistically hoping to have it published before the end of the year. That's my goal. Might not happen. You know, sometimes it takes me years to finish a book. I'm just trying to push for that because it would be nice to have it done and finished and available. So anyway, that's the new updates. Hi, Mom with me. You're excited about the, yes. Oh man, the biscuits, those are dangerous. You gotta be careful with those biscuits. So I sat down and I started writing out recipes that I wanted to include in this German cookbook, and I'm close to 200 recipes. Well, that's cool, Sons of Thunder. That's exciting. She would probably like that. So I'm close to 200 recipes. It's probably going to end up being about 220 recipes. So it's a big project. I am excited about it. Bianca, you got to get it, you know? And yes, SJ, exciting, 200. So that's a big project I'm trying to finish up and, well, not finish up, I just got started, but get it done and get it done on time. In some personal news, my husband and I went to LA yesterday just for the day. We flew out at 6 a.m. and we got back home around 9:30 p.m. And we just spent the day in LA. He had a couple of specialty bookstores he wanted to hit up there and some restaurants he wanted to try, and we just wanted to spend some time together, and we figured that would be a fun thing to do. We didn't want to spend I'm going to read that in just a second, Mommy with me. I didn't want to spend 12 hours in the car. Well, neither of us did. You know, if you only have one day together, that wouldn't really work. So we flew out to Burbank. That's only like a 45-minute flight from here. And we spent the day together, and we flew back home tonight. It was pretty fun. One of the places we visited was the old Los Angeles Zoo. And it is basically like a defunct zoo. Like all the cages are there and all the animal habitats, but you can just freely walk around in them and explore. I don't want to say it was eerie because it wasn't, but it was a little weird. This is an abandoned zoo, kind of overgrown. And there were people there. There were people painting and there were people exploring. And it's kind of like in this, I forget what the park is called, but it's in a large park, and it's kind of a mountainous area. So it's steep and it's woodsy, and it was quite interesting. We also went to a Hungarian store that I've known about ever since I've lived in the United States. Otto's Hungarian Imports. And when we were first married and living in California, it was always my dream to be able to order from Otto's. And of course, that was never in our budget. And I've wanted to go visit the store ever since then. So yesterday when we were in LA, and we were kind of like in that Glendale, Burbank area, I looked it up and I was like, oh, we're only 10 minutes from Otto's. Let's check out Otto's. And I was a little perplexed because the Google reviews only gave it like 3.2 stars. Bye, Sons of Thunder. See you later. Is anybody else having issues with the internet? Is the internet problem on my end maybe? Let me know if you have good connection. So it was only like 3.2 stars for Otto's. And I read the reviews because the Google reviews usually are very indicative of what to expect. And the reviews were all, if I could give 0 stars, I would. Thank you, SJ. If I could give negative stars, I would. And they kept talking about the fact that the owner would follow you around and would not let you photograph anything and would just hover, and that everything inside the store was really old and dusty and dirty and expired. Thank you, Bianca. So we went there, and from the outside, it basically looked like a gas station mini mart. It had like the lottery things on the window and some other weird stuff. And when we went inside, it smelled unpleasant. And there were shelves with merchandise like you would expect, like a little grocery store, like a mini mart. And some of it looked well organized, actually. I don't know if I can share a picture on here. I don't think I can. I don't want to mess with it and mess it up. But some of it looked okay, like it was put away. I mean, it was a bit perplexing the way they had kitchen utensils, like specialty European kitchen utensils, like a Spätzle maker, just like helter-skelter, just thrown on these shelves. And then there was like food on the shelf too, like packs of pasta thrown in and jars of food. So that looked pretty messy, but the main shelf was pretty clean. But then I picked up an item that I actually thought about buying. And when I turned it over, I did a double take and I had to keep rereading it because the best buy date, the sell by date, expired in 2013, 11 years ago. Yes, that's correct. And I was like, this, I must be wrong. So I put it down and I picked up another one of those out of that same box and it had the same expiration date. So I took a picture. The owner was not around to hover, so I was able to take a picture. In fact, I took a few pictures in the store. That's my Instant Pot finishing dinner. Please ignore it. It's just gonna keep moving. There it goes. And as we then started, that was the oldest thing I found in the store. But I found so many things. Most of the things I found in the store had expired in 2021. Some things had expired in 2023. And in fact, of all the things I checked, I only found a candy bar that was not yet expired. And I think there was one other product that had not yet expired. And I'm not saying everything that was expired. I'm just saying out of the 20 or 25 things I checked, all but 2 were expired. Some as much as 11 years expired. And it wasn't like honey or salt, like it was like a baking ingredient. It was cream stabilizer. It's this starch that we add to whipped cream in Germany so that it, you know, it remains nice and firm even if the cream is outside in the summer. So I didn't want to buy anything there. The one thing that wasn't expired I would have liked to buy, but I didn't buy it from them because I didn't want these people, you know, to handle my food at all. So yeah, we went to Defunct Zoo, we also went to a German store, and it was very small. It did not compare to the 2 German stores we have here in Phoenix. And when I came in, they were blasting, I can't tell if it was Russian or Ukrainian, but they were blasting one or the other music. And I was like, sorry, this is not German. If you're blasting Russian music, you're not German. So, just took a quick look around and it did not even have half of the products that our local German stores have. So I was just like, this is lame, let's go. So yeah, it was a fun trip. And yeah, Otto's was quite disappointing. After having wanted to order from them for the last 20 years, to then see it in person, I was like, nope, never, not happening, just not happening. My daughter-in-law, Chloe, was over here helping with the kids, and 2 of my teenage daughters were also here. Miriam is out of town visiting relatives in South Carolina, and she will be back not until August, actually, I believe. And my brother's son is coming to visit us for 2 weeks in July. And he's going to be staying at the house with us for 2 weeks, so that's going to be fun. That's coming up. I guess that's really all the exciting big news that I have to share. I can't think of anything else right now. So anyway, yeah, let's get into topic. But before we do, I'm going to scroll back and see what Mom with Me had said real quick, if you bear with me. Boy skinny. So, how old is he? Did you say how old he is? He's 9. So I would not be worried about that at all if you're worried about it, because you said he has crushes on girls, so I know he's okay. At 9 years old, he really shouldn't even be thinking about that. Like, I wouldn't worry about it. Like, for you to think, oh, I know he's okay because he has crushes on girls, even if he didn't have crushes on girls, that still wouldn't mean he's not okay. It's totally normal for a 9-year-old to be skinny. He has not yet even hit prepubescence, so he doesn't have those hormones that make him pack on muscles. I've seen some boys that are 9, 10, even 12 that are just as skinny as a broomstick. And I would maybe have a word with the kids that are teasing him, whether that's his siblings or his cousins, And if talking to them doesn't work, then maybe you can talk to their moms or your husband can talk to their dads, because that's really not okay to taunt him like that. And of course, he needs to learn how to be able to put up with when people make fun of him. But that's really a lot to expect of a 9-year-old. So I would definitely not tolerate that. I'm not sure what the advice is other than, you know, talk to the kids, talk to their moms, have your husband talk to the dads, because that's really not okay to taunt him like that, and that will affect him negatively. So I would not tolerate that at all. Even if these people can't control their kids, I would probably greatly limit their access to my own kid if they were taunting my child like that. All right, let's talk car safety. And this is a huge topic, like I said, so if I'm forgetting something, please feel free to leave it in the comments. This is gonna go in no particular order, but maybe we should start with car seat safety, because that seems to be a big one. And the first lesson here is never post a picture of your baby or child in a car seat on the internet. It does not matter whether they're restrained correctly or incorrectly, whether they're forward facing or rear facing, whether you did it correctly or incorrectly. If you post a picture of any child of any age in any car seat anywhere on the internet, expect to get attacked. Now, I personally have only mildly experienced this because I don't post those kinds of pictures, but I've seen it happen, and it's always bad. So on a humorous side note, don't ever post a picture of your child in a car seat on the internet, because out of the woodwork will come these strangers whom you've never met, but they love your child more than you and are more concerned about his safety than you, so they will tell you how to buckle that child correctly. Now, there is some truth to the fact that, of course, you want to select the right car seat for your child, and you want to use the car seat straps properly. And one thing that I have seen that I would not correct personally, but I'm correcting here in general, is that in order for a car seat to work correctly, the chest clip, if there is one, the chest clip has to actually go across the chest. And you know that it's at the right height if it's about level with the armpit. So if it's about level with a child's armpit, or like across the chest right here, maybe nipple area, armpits, that's the correct position for the chest clip. Should never be down here over the abdomen, because if you were, God forbid, to get an accident, that could then push in and damage internal organs, because you're now beneath the rib cage. So you want to watch out for that. Oh, Mom with me, are you saying your daughter got hurt with the chest clip being too long? Now, some car seats do not have a chest clip. In fact, the European car seats do not have a chest clip. They just come down and they clip between the legs, and those are allowed here. Perfectly legal, you can get them. So the problem isn't so much not having a chest clip. The problem is having a chest clip in the wrong position. So make sure that if you have a chest clip, it is on about, armpit level, to make sure the child doesn't get hurt. Let's talk about forward versus rear facing. Now, every state has different laws regarding this. In my state of Arizona, the law requires rear facing until 12 months, I believe. Don't quote me on that. They might have changed it in the last year or two, but I'm 90% certain that it's still rear facing is mandatory until 1 year of age, and after that it's forward facing or rear facing. Now, there is a whole army of mom experts out there who stand ready to jump down the throat of anybody whose child is not rear facing until they are ready to get their permit. I'm not in that camp. When I can turn my kids around, I do turn my kids around. Why do I turn my kids around? Because they ride happier, and when they ride happier, everybody rides safer. And the reason for that, and I'm going to talk about that later, is that rather than, what's better? Not getting in an accident, or getting in an accident but just having everything dialed in perfectly. You'd still rather not have an accident than have an accident, even if you had the best car seat in the ideal position with the correct straps and yada yada. Not getting in the accident will always be better. So if I have a child and the child is puking all over themselves because they're rear facing, or they're screaming because their legs are cramped, or because they can't look out the window and travel in the, look in the direction of travel. For a whole number of reasons, kids are much happier forward facing in a car seat than rear facing. And while there might be some marginal benefit to rear facing the child, should you get in a catastrophic accident, I feel that the distraction from mom being distracted because mom is now not driving focused and defensively, I think that that is more dangerous. Now, with today's modern vehicles and modern car seats, I'm not saying this is always the case, but thankfully, when there's an accident, most of the time, the vehicle is damaged or totaled, but the people are fine. And in fact, they walk away uninjured. We've experienced this personally. My son, who's an EMT, he has said, well, if I've learned one thing, it's that most car accidents, everybody walks away unhurt. And that's a wonderful thing. We're very thankful for that. The vehicles are now built, to where they basically absorb all the damage and the vehicle will be totaled, but the people will be fine. Now, the reason why they say rear facing is safer is because if you were to get hit in the back and the child is forward facing, then their neck could go like this. And if they're not old enough, then this can like hurt their neck. That's the only reason why they say rear facing is safer. But by the same token, if you were to rear end somebody and then your child is rear facing, then, basically instead of their neck flying forward, they would be pushed into the car seat because they're rear facing. So in both scenarios, the rear facing is better should you hit or be hit at a high impact as far as your neck and your spine. We're not talking about your child will die if it's forward facing and your child will not die if it's rear facing. I mean, maybe in the case of a newborn with a weak neck, that might be the difference, but we're not talking about putting newborns forward facing. We're talking about putting a sturdy, healthy, robust toddler. Now my girls, when they've been smaller, I might keep them rear facing till they're 18 months old or maybe even closer to the 24-month mark. But my boys have always been kind of these little, Humvees, very sturdy, very strong, good neck strength. Their neck doesn't just flop all over the place. And most importantly, by the grace of God, I have been accident-free since my son Solomon was 9 months old. Now, I did one time hit a little retaining wall, but I was the only vehicle involved. The airbags didn't deploy. There was just some damage to the fender, so I'm not counting that one. But as far as colliding with other vehicles, either being hit or hitting, by the grace of God, accident-free for 22 years now. So I feel that preventing accidents is far, far more important than whether or not your kid has just ultimate neck strength to be able to rear face versus forward face. I really don't think it's an issue. And I think them screaming and being cramped is far worse for them, let alone their spine and whatnot. Now, if you have a different opinion, please, you're more than entitled to it. I think that there's an element of moral grandstanding where we moms just always want to fight for our kids and we always want to we want to be like the mama bear, like we're doing this and we're fighting for kids getting the right thing in life. So we can get very passionate about these things, but this is really a silly issue to make that a hill to die on. There's many areas where we as moms can say, no, I'm willing to take a stand and take the high road on a moral issue. I can think of many moral issues, but car seats are not a moral issue. Now, car seat safety is important, but like I said, I find it debatable whether it's safer to put them rear facing in the first place and whether it's not more distracting. Okay, so I have a cactus needle on my finger. I was wondering what was bothering me all day. So if you see moms online kind of going rabid about your child is 4 years old and forward facing, that's crazy and you're crazy and yada yada, don't take that to heart. Just some moms they're real passionate and they don't have a better outlet for their passion, so car seat safety it is. So as for us personally, we start facing the child forward around age 1, and I usually have 2 car seats for the kids at that age. Rear facing, if I expect them to fall asleep, I'll put them in the little infant carrier car seat bowl thing. And if they're going to be awake or I want them to stay awake, I put them in the forward facing car seat. But do what you think is best, by all means. Now, you want to have a safety tool in your vehicle. Speaking about seatbelts, you want to have a safety tool in your vehicle, and you can buy these on Amazon, and you can just put in, you know, window braking tool or something like that. And it's usually like a little hammer, and it's made for breaking car windows, because car windows are actually extremely difficult to break. They're made intentionally to not be broken. And they typically have a seatbelt cutter on them also. In case the seatbelt gets stuck and you can't unbuckle, you can use the cutter to cut the seatbelt. And it's a very inexpensive tool. It's like around $10. And I recommend that you have at least one in every vehicle. In fact, in a large van like mine, we also have one in the back. Now, if your kids are rambunctious, that might not be a good idea, because you don't want them pulling out this hammer and smashing in your window just for fun, or cutting up the seatbelt just for fun. So if your kids are inclined to do that, then just keep the one in the front and keep it accessible. Mine is in the driver door, so just immediately on my left. And I'm not saying there's anything else in that. That's all there is in there. I can reach down and grab it in this one particular spot. That's where it always is. Because sometimes in an accident, the seatbelts can jam, and if you have to evacuate that vehicle, you know, you want to have that handy. Like that accident I talked about. I think I talked about a week ago when my son had to respond to somebody where he had, this guy was just driving to work at 4 a.m. in the morning on a highway, and somebody else had broken down in the middle of the highway, had left the vehicle in the middle of the roadway, not even hazards or anything. So this other guy on his way to work came around the corner and just rear-ended the car that was stopped in the middle of the roadway. His car burst into flames, and all he was able to do was to unbuckle himself, open his door, and kind of fall out into the road. He could not walk away or even drag himself away because he had broken both of his legs and several other bones. Thankfully, another motorist happened to be coming by, who grabbed him under the shoulders and dragged him off into the desert, in the dirt out there. And the vehicle was on fire. But sometimes the seatbelt could lock, or it could get jammed and you can't get out, or the window is jammed, or the door is jammed. So that's why you want to have that tool in the car with you. And you know, I've had mine for probably 15 years, and I've thankfully never had to use it. And thankfully my kids have never used it. But it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So you want to always think about, when you think about safety, you want to think about prevention and being proactive. So have that tool in your car. Obviously, keep your car well maintained, especially if you're going to be driving rurally or out of town. You always want to, if you're not near services or where other people are, you want to especially be very careful with that. We always carry water in the vehicle. And the reason why we always carry water is obvious, because we live in the desert. And even though 99% of the driving I do is in the city, where there are always other people around who could help us, you know, it's just good to have your own water. You don't need to bring food. I'll talk about that in a minute too. But we always have water. And it also works like the other day, something with my cooling system went bad, and I got a warning on the dash, red light, you know, system failure, engine overheating, pull over immediately, turn the engine off. And I did. And after I carefully opened the cooling tank, it was low because there was a leak in it, and I filled it up with water that I had in the van, and that was enough to limp back home and then get the van towed to the shop. So you always want to have water on you. The reason why I don't bring food is because I don't like my kids to eat in the van. Like I said, virtually all of our driving is in town. They don't need to eat in town. I'm not a friend of snacking, and I'm even less of a friend of snacking away from the table. So unless you're outside or at the table, I don't think you should be eating. And I don't want my kids eating in the car. If we're just in town, they can wait till we get home or wherever we're going. And if we're not in town and they get hungry because we've been on the road for 3 hours, then it's probably time to just pull over and take a restroom break, and everybody can eat a snack then. Eating in the car just makes the car gross. There's really no good way to clean that and wash that and keep it sanitary. So I don't bring snacks, because nobody's going to starve in the city if we break down. You know, water, yes, we need that, but nobody's going to starve there's going to be somebody within sight of us who has food that they can give us at any given time. Now, again, if you live rurally in the winter in Alaska, obviously you're going to need food and heating blankets. I'm talking about living in the city in Phoenix. Now, something that we don't need here in Phoenix, but that you should always keep in mind, and I learned this many years ago, and it seems counterintuitive, but it's just something that you just want to hear and put in the back of your mind, is that should you ever find yourself going into a body of water, and that can even be a shallow body of water, that can just be a creek that's just a foot or two deep, but if you tip into it upside down and it's enough to cover the windows in your car, if you think you're going to go into water, either because the bridge is collapsing after some container ship runs into it, like just happened, you know, on the East Coast, didn't that just happen? Or because you're driving and you're on a country road and maybe there's like a little lake or something. If you think you're going to go into water, this is counterintuitive, this is scary, hopefully nobody will have experiences. The first thing you need to do, the very, very first thing, before you get in the water, is to lower every window. Just put all the windows down that you can put down. And then the next thing you need to do is to open all the seatbelt buckles. And car seats, everything, just unbuckle yourself and then start unbuckling the kids. But first the windows need to go down. And the scary thing about the windows going down is that the water will enter immediately. As soon as you hit the water, that water is going to come in through the windows, and that's scary. And, you know, thankfully people don't drown in a minute or 3. Typically, if you keep it under 5 minutes, even kids, you will be fine. I mean, I'm not saying you're not going to be hurt or that it's not dangerous, but you should be able to be brought back around. But the problem is that if you go in the water and your windows are up, the water is not going to come in immediately, but the water will get in. And when the water starts getting in, even if you're just in a little bit of water, that door can no longer be opened. That window can no longer be lowered. That window can no longer be broken out. I mean, unless you have like a crank window, which nobody has anymore, you will be trapped in that vehicle, and that vehicle will become your water coffin. So unfortunately, you have to do the scarier thing, which is to just put all the windows down. It will allow the water to come in, yes, but it will allow you and any passengers to get out as soon as you have your seatbelt off. And I think about this, we're Samaritan Ministries members. Instead of health insurance, we have Samaritan Ministries. And there's a member family, I forget which state, I think in the Midwest. And about 5 or 6 years ago, they were visiting family for Christmas. And as they were backing out of this really long rural driveway on their rural property, and the dad was driving first, and the mom was following his taillights. Or maybe he also had it. Maybe he was backing up too. I don't know, but she was backing up following him. And she lost sight of his taillights. And she slipped down an embankment in the minivan with 3 kids in the minivan. And the van, as it went down the embankment, tipped and landed on its roof in a little pond on the property. And even though the water was only like chest deep, it was very cold. It was in December. And because the vehicle had come to rest on its roof, when the husband realized, I'm no longer seeing the lights of the minivan, he backtracked, he got there, he could not get the doors open. There was no way to get those doors open. And of course, water entered the cabin, and 2 of the kids died, and the mom almost died. So the mom was able to get one of the kids out, and then she had gone back in to get a second kid, and she was like struggling to get their car seats free, and she had a hard time getting them out because the van doors, the windows were all shut, the doors were all shut, and I think her window only, or her door only, she had been able to open. And when her husband got there and got helpers there, basically the mom was unconscious in the water. 2 of the kids died, and so the mom barely survived and one of the kids survived. But you never know when that could happen. So just put in the back of your mind that if you know you're going to enter water, you have to leave an escape route. Even though that's super scary, put the window down, take the seatbelt off, because you're a lot better off in the water outside the vehicle than in the water inside the vehicle without being able to open the door. So I'm probably explaining that all wrong, but the basic principle I think is coming across. And you know, nobody wants to think about that, but these are real life scenarios. And since we're talking about keeping little kids safe in the car, you know, that's a huge one. This is also the reason why I try to keep the little kids in their car seats within reach of me. So if they have a car seat, they are in the row immediately behind me where I can reach around and reach their car seats. And typically I put the oldest in the back. That way they can help evacuate, they can help do whatever needs to happen to get kids out the back, get kids out the side, wherever it needs to happen. So, you know, that's some drills that you can do with your kids. Now, another one, and I think this one is a much more likely issue, or a more real danger, I guess, and that's forgetting a baby or toddler in the back of the car. Now, I've talked about this before. I'm quite passionate about this. I've thankfully never done this. Not even like for a minute, like, oh, whoops, I left the kid in the car. It is a very real danger because of how the human brain works. So a lot of moms will be like, wow, I would never forget my child in the car. It's the most important person in the world. If you won't forget your phone, how could you forget your child? Like, you would never forget your phone in the car. How can you forget your child? Well, number one, people do forget their phone in the car. I forget my phone at home all the time. I forget it in the car when I go in the store. I forget my glasses, you know. But the thing is that the human mind works all on routine and on habits. And when you get in the car to go somewhere and it's not part of, like, it's your normal routine, but today there was some disruption. Like, let's say you always go to Costco by this certain way, but today, because the toddler wasn't napping, you brought them along. Yes, exactly, Bianca. But the toddler is catatonic in the back, might even fall asleep when you get to the store, and it's 2 in the afternoon, so they would not normally be with you. And you get to the store and you get out and you're just on autopilot and you just start going into the store and you forget that, no, actually today I had the child with me and he fell asleep and he's very quiet in the back. Or a million other scenarios like that. You know, maybe dad is dropping the kids off on his way to work, which he doesn't usually do, and once he gets in the car and he starts the engine, he just starts heading to work and he forgets the baby in the car. We've seen that so many times in the news. So it's really, 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 really important that you realize that this is something that can happen to you. This can literally happen to anybody. It doesn't matter if you're a rocket scientist or a nuclear physicist, or if you're just like total delinquent parent. This can happen just because of how the mind works. So the way to get around that is to put something that will basically interrupt that train of thought, where you will see it when you stop the car, and that will kind of wake you out of that habit loop, wake you out of autopilot, and be like, oh yeah, that's right, I have the child. So there's different things you can do. I mean, sometimes they say put your purse in the back with the child. That way when you turn off the engine and you go to grab your purse, it's in the back and it's like, oh yeah, I have the kid. I've also heard recommended just put a shoe back there. Put a shoe with your kid, because as soon as you open the car door to step out and get out, you'll be like, oh, I need my shoe. Oh, that's right, I have the kid with me. What I do is I have like a yellow lanyard that I can hang either from my rear view mirror or my shift stick. And it doesn't live there. It lives in my left driver door along with that window braking tool. And if I'm out and it's something unusual, like I brought the baby along and I'm just by myself, me and the baby, when I never usually am, I will hang that up. I will put that, because then when I basically turn off the engine, I'm looking at that. And because it doesn't always hang there, it will immediately stand out to me. If I put it on the shift stick when I put it in park, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. And I did actually have Oliver out with me a couple of times this week, just him. And I had to go into a store. And it's not that I was almost forgetting him, but every time I put the car in park and I saw that there, I was like, yeah, that's a good reminder, because I can see why it would be really easy to forget him, because I'm busy, I'm preoccupied. You know, we think about so many things, we plan so many things as busy moms. We're always mentally like spinning 20 plates. It's really easy to have your routine so firm that you forget that you have a baby in the back. So The most important aspect to never forgetting your child in the car, the most important aspect is to realize that you are not above that. It's not like, well, I'm such a great mom, I would never do that, only bad moms do that. You're wrong, and if you think that, your child is actually in acute danger. You have to realize that could happen to me just because of how the human mind works, and I need to make provisions to have a fail-safe. So basically that if one system fails, some other mechanism will catch that, and it's not just a free fall into tragedy. This is turning out to be a pretty dark segment today, but I guess we're talking car seat safety. Moving on from that. Yeah, exactly. The purse, yeah. Moving on from that, don't have heavy objects in your vehicle. And I'm specifically thinking, I think what many of us do is metal water bottles. That in an accident just becomes a projectile. That's like a baseball bat coming at your head if a metal water bottle hits you. If you were suddenly rear-ended really hard, or if you hit something really hard and that flies through the cabin, those become projectiles. So always be cautious with that. Don't have any heavy objects that are unrestrained in the vehicle. And lastly, and this is a huge point, of course, there's so much to say, drive defensively. You will get in an accident sooner or later, even if you personally do not make any mistakes, if you don't run the red light, if you don't run the stop sign, if you go the speed limit, if you are not watching out, predicting and working around other people's mess up, you will be in an accident. And whether or not you're at fault, it's not worth it. It's not worth having on your gravestone, she had the right of way. It's not worth saying, but it was the other person's fault. You don't want to, even if everybody walks away uninjured, car accidents are such a headache because you have to deal with the insurance company and you have to file a claim and you have to go through all that, and it's such a pain in the neck. So for no other reason than that, even if everybody walks away unhurt, thank God, you don't want to deal with insurance. It's just such a headache. So what you have to do in order to stay accident free, you have to drive defensively. And when we're talking about driving defensively, there's 3 things that you should observe religiously. Number 1, check every intersection before you cross it, even if you have the green light, even if it's been green for 20 seconds. Look left when you cross, and then look right when you cross the other side, because you never know when some crazy person's coming through the intersection. And I know so many people personally. In fact, the daughter and son-in-law of a good friend of mine, her daughter and her son-in-law just died about 6 months ago because they were just driving down a major thoroughfare here and somebody ran a red light and hit them and killed both of them on the spot. Always check for red lights. That's point number 1. I mean, red light runners, I should say. Check. Don't cross even if it's on green without checking. And keep a great following distance. That's point number 2. You cannot control the space behind you. If somebody's tailgating you, if somebody is not giving you enough room, if somebody's just right on you and if you were to brake, they'd hit you, you cannot really control that. But you can control the space in front of you. So if the guy behind you is tailgating, but you double your following distance in the front, then if there is a sudden danger ahead of you, after you barely tap the light so that the guy behind you knows to slow down, it then gives you escape room in front of you to get into and to get away from, because the guy behind you is way too close and he's not giving any room. So point number 2 is have a long following distance. You need to maintain that following distance. Don't be tailgating. You want to have that room in front of you as your escape route. And point number 3 is your speed. Watch your speed. And I'm not a slow driver. I'm not saying to be a slow driver, but be a prudent driver and use the speed that's appropriate. If you're at 10 o'clock at night driving on an empty freeway and you're driving 95 miles an hour, I'm not saying you should, but I'm saying you're probably not in any danger if it's an empty road and a wide open freeway and nobody there. But if you're driving in the city and the speed limit is 45, but it's stop and go traffic, you probably shouldn't be going 55 in the diamond lane, because any minute somebody could try to merge in there and you would collide with them. So distance and speed and check all intersections before crossing them are, that's a good tip, Nick, are just the 3 huge factors that will help keep you out of accidents. And of course, it is by the grace of God. Yep, exactly, Cass. You want to leave that. You can control the room in front of you. It gives you somewhere to go. Those things will keep you safe. And of course, it is by the grace of God. Of course, if you get in an accident, it may or may not be your fault, but it can happen to all of us. These are just some things that can help you drive defensively, because like I said, the best way to stay safe is to prevent the accident, not to just have the safest car and the safest car seat. You know, it would be better to not have the accident in the first place. And that ties in with the distractions, you know, so kids should not be allowed to act like animals in the vehicle, because that will distract you and it will put you on edge and you won't be driving defensively. And you might forget to check the intersection. You might forget to check your blind spot before turning right for a bicyclist or something like that. So kids should be taught that, you know, driving is a serious matter. It's not the time to be screaming and fighting and mom, he said this, and mom, she said that, and he's sitting in my seat. That's an issue that really could become a life or death issue. So you want to teach your kids that that is not the time to be fighting in the car like that, because they're putting everybody in danger. All right, well, that's all I have today. Does anybody have any content they wish to add or any questions? Yeah, Hope. I can think of several times, 2 or 3, that I would have been broadsided at high speed by a very large vehicle had I not checked all the points I brought up. I've had personal experiences where I would have been in a very bad accident if I had not observed those things. Yeah, so the rear facing, kids do not like to be rear facing typically. It does make them nauseous. I mean, they'll do it as a baby because, you know, they're just kind of so sleepy and whatever, but to have a 4-year-old rear facing with their knees up by their face, I really think it's just kind of like a badge of mommy martyrdom, like who can rear face their child the longest, and they get there's no medal you get for that. You know, you don't get a trophy for rear facing your 12-year-old. So yeah, but if you talk about that on the internet, you know, somebody's gonna lose their mind. All right, I don't see any questions. SJ. Yep, especially in construction zones. Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. Yep, the seatbelt wearing is definitely very important. That's a huge one. Also, my son said, you know, typically when they see injuries, it's because they were not buckled, and that's just an easy one to prevent. Oh, yeah, everything high. Yeah, well, those are the kind of mistakes, Nick, that you make once, and then you learn. If I leave this room, if my kids or the dog can access it, I have to clean it. So you learn what works for you and what doesn't based on your individual circumstances, because, you know, if you don't predict it, then you're going to learn the hard way after you have to clean it up. All right, well, next week will be for members only. That will be July the 7th. Wow, I can't believe it's the last day of the first half of 2024. That's crazy. I can't believe half the year is over. So I am going to right now. Yeah, winter jackets. Oh yeah. Yep. That's a good point, Cass. No winter jackets on car seats, because they make it to where they can actually slip out right along with the jacket. What was I gonna say? I'm gonna bake a red currant cheesecake right now. Johannisbeer Käsekuchen with a streusel topping. I was able to find organic red currants shipped from Washington State. So I've sold quite a few for this upcoming week. So I'm just doing a final run of my recipe just to make sure I got it all correct. And so we can enjoy it too. And then, yeah, we have church tonight. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed week. If you have any topics you would like to see covered in the future, I would love to have you suggest them in the comments, or you can also email me at aretheyallyoursblog@gmail.com. All right, well, thank you all so much. God bless you. Have a good rest of your Sunday.